Hey everyone, thanks for coming along to Quality Advocates and today's discussion around the challenges that test managers face, both organisationally and within the teams. We've got a great panel for you today. We've got Tony Bruce, Jesper Ottosen, and Maryam Umar, and a special shout out to Marian who came up with this idea to do today's session. Just to talk you through the formality and how today's session is going to work. So I'm going to be facilitating today. And if anyone has got any questions, if they could write them in the chat, that would be brilliant. And I'll ask the panelists those questions that come up. So I guess Maryam, Jesper, and Tony, are you guys ready?
Yep.
Good stuff. And Tony and Jesper, are you all good?
Yes.
Yes.
Brilliant.
When I unmute.
Good stuff. Well, I guess to kick things off, it'd be great if our panelists could introduce themselves. So can we start off with you, please, Maryam?
Oops, should I mute? Here. Hi, everyone. I'm Maryam. I've been in the world of software testing throughout my career. I came into software testing because I feel I have this natural knack of being very detail oriented and being very persistent about everything being of a high quality bar. I started my career as an manual tester and quickly moved into automation. And then I have actually moved into a managerial role by choice. It wasn't a natural progression for me. I chose to be a people manager because I was getting quite annoyed by how tech leads were trying to manage QA people and not knowing how to give them direction. Currently, I work as head of quality at a fintech called Thought Machine. We're based in Old Street, and our product is a core banking system, which is going to be cloud agnostic. Some of our clients include Lloyd's, Atom Bank, Standard Chartered, and so on. Over to Jesper, I guess.
Thanks everyone. Good to see you all. I'm a test manager at a Danish IT outsourcing company. So the projects that I usually do, currently 2 examples are very good. One is about implementing a standard system. So if you're familiar with SAP or Dynamics, that could be one of them, going from one product to another project and doing the orchestrating the testing and the test automation in that context. Another project that I'm also doing at the same time is an infrastructure transition project. So with all the data centers, also sort of local data center, we have one in our company, people are always moving their stuff from one data center to another data center. So I'm involved in a project where we have to move 500 servers, I guess, from one data center to another data center and still make it transparent for the end user that it's being moved. So that's also a challenge. In both cases, I need to sort of involve all kinds of people in the test activities, and that's sort of my specialty area. So I can discuss that with you. So, well, more about that later. Up to you, Tony.
Thank you. Good to see you, Jesper, by the way. It's been a while. Thanks for the invite, Billy. Hello, everyone. My name's Tony Bruce. I've been testing in various guises since roughly about 2003, which can give you the idea that I'm quite old. But young at heart. I've worked in various domains, from charities to accounting firms to media. I was at Channel 4 for a while, to agencies. I'm currently at Babylon Health, which is a private health provider. I've been there for about 7 weeks. So starting the lockdown was quite challenging. And yeah, I guess I classify myself as a generalist, or a specialist generalist. and happy to answer any questions or have a discussion.
Brilliant, good stuff. Thanks everyone for those intros. Oh, sorry, we've just got here a few connection issues on your side, Tony. You kept breaking up throughout there. I'm not sure what's happened there. I experienced it a little bit. Maybe do you have a mic at all that may help?
Possibly somewhere in the house, but it will take me a couple of hours to find it. If it keeps breaking up, then let me know and I'll try a different laptop.
Cool, no worries. So for anyone who has got any questions, if they could just put them in the chat, that would be great. And we'll try and get through as many as we can. We'll be on this Zoom call till about 7 o'clock. So I'm personally going to be jumping in with the first question. I guess if each of you could talk me through some of the challenges that you feel, I guess talk me through your managerial journeys so far, and it would be great to highlight a key challenge that you faced within your career and how you overcame that challenge. So I guess we could go back to front and go over to you, Tony, if that would work.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, let me know if I start breaking up. I guess some of the main challenges, well, I guess my journey is, I wouldn't actually classify myself as a test manager. I don't generally have that as my job title, although it's part of what I do. So currently, I'm a QA lead. So I do have line management duties and I do talk with various teams about how to test. So, but the actual job title isn't one I've generally taken on. To get there, I first started testing as part of a rollout of, well, I'm so old, I can't even remember now. Which one was first, Windows XP or Windows 2000? Yeah, no one else can remember either, right? We're getting on. Okay.
I think 2000 was first.
2000 was first? Okay.
I think
so. I was moving from moving a bunch of bespoke applications from Windows 2000 to Windows XP. There was a comment at the company that I was working on, or at. And that's where I got my start in testing, making sure that our bespoke application still worked. And I kind of progressed on from there in various roles. I started contracting a few years ago, and I've worked with a firm, or a software consulting called Equal Experts for many years. And I joined as
Sorry, Tony, just jump in. It's cutting out a little bit on my side. So yeah, I don't know if you would be able to grab another laptop potentially, that'd be brilliant. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll log off. I'll be back in a minute.
Brilliant.
Sorry,
thanks very much.
These intros.
So Jesper, would be great for you to talk through your managerial journey so far, and yeah, highlight any a key challenge that you face in your career and how you overcame that, please.
Yeah, definitely. So for the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, I've always been with the title test manager. Even in Denmark, we'll still use the English terms, but I've never had the sort of the managerial role of being able to hire and fire people. It's always been similar to a project manager, is that you have a team, perhaps a testing team that you would like to you need to get going and work for you, right? So that's that's just to set that straight. But obviously there's plenty of challenges in that, going from having a large test crew. Once also about 5-7 years back, I was part of a large crew which had both people, large group of testing people locally and also offshore to India, for instance. So there was a lot of testers, so that it was very prevalent that there was a role of testers, and we had people like me trying to make sure that all the I's were dotted and the test cases were passed and so on. But that's really the last 5 years has been changing a lot. It's more now about test leadership and more about getting all other kinds of people to help out in the testing activity. so I could keep on about that. So let's go to Mariam.
Thank you, Jesper. So for me, as I said earlier, I mainly came in because the leaders I had didn't really have an idea of how to lead testers, manage testers. And the challenge I've seen the most, the biggest challenge is hiring genuinely good testers. Unfortunately, our industry, the software testing industry, is, I think, plagued with a lot of test engineers. And I know I may offend a few people here, but it absolutely winds me up when you're trying to hire and people claim that they're software test engineers, whereas what they've all done is just written some step definitions and that's it. So that's been my number one challenge, hiring. And then when you overcome that and you actually have people who are great testers, the next challenge is, how do you help build them for their profession and their industry? A lot of people who are exploratory testers, they'll actually go and say, when you ask them, what do you want to do next? Oh, I want to learn automation. But nobody really thinks about why they want to learn automation. Is it because everybody else is writing test automation? Do you want to be a domain expert? There's so many other things you can do as a test engineer, as a quality engineer, as I would say. And the path to progression is quite challenging. I have had people who've been in quality coach roles, but even for them, all they're coaching about in the engineering teams is really how you bake quality in during your entire process. Then you also have the challenge of companies where they say, we don't have testers at all, we don't need them, we write all our automation, but then how do you know that the software is functioning in all the weird ways that a customer would function in? I think we can go back to Tony if his laptop's working now.
Let's give it a try and find out. How's that? Any better? Yeah. I forgot what I was saying. What was the question that we're dealing with now then?
Yeah, sure. So for each of you, could you talk me through your managerial journeys and highlight a key challenge that you faced within your career and how you've overcome that challenge?
Okay, I think I'll jump straight to the challenge. I find it personally that testing is such a varied subject and varied topic that it's kind of like when you talk about an animal. So let's say if I said the word dog now, we all think of a dog, we're all thinking of the same thing, but we're all thinking of completely different dogs. And that's how people understand testing, right? They all have their own, whether you think of it as a misconception or a preconception or however you want to phrase it. Even when you start talking to other testers, their idea of testing is going to differ to yours. And then so when you get into a company, and I can see Jesper nodding, I'm sure he's had this before, but as soon as you get into a company and you start talking to basically your teammates and you find out that there's 10 people and 8 people have a difference of opinion of what testing means, whether it's trying to go for 100% automation, which is not a thing, but they believe it's a thing, or whether people want to try and explore everything, and exploratory testing is great and adds a lot of value, but you can't just rely on that. It's dealing with the different opinions and kind of getting everyone going in the same direction, which is a challenge. That one of the things that I've had to do in the past is actually get everyone to discuss and agree on a definition of certain things. For example, just something like end-to-end testing, which again, we all have a view of what it means, but it might mean something different to your particular team as well. You may only have a part of the website, whatever it is. So your end-to-end testing version is completely different to someone else's end-to-end testing version. So being able to have those defined so that people can read them or be aware of them, and so you can discuss them clearly and everyone's on the same page, is one of the things I found to be really useful. Because as soon as you get in and start talking, you can see that somewhere along the line, you can see the divergence and you're talking about different things. So it does help to have these defined or set or agreed so that you are talking about the same thing and you can move forward. Sorry, that was a bit waffly.
No, that's really good. That's really good.
No, just I want to add, we can see here just by Mariam, Tony, and me, we have various different backgrounds, so each actually illustrate various ways of working with testing and test activities. So I'm looking forward to all the other good questions. I'm sure we can answer them.
Good. Tony, I think you've actually got a question in the chat from Seema. So she's asked, as a chapter lead, how do you have visibility across QA in all the squads? Do you only have chapter lead responsibilities, or are you hands-on as well?
So in my particular tribe, because they're still kind of following the Spotify model, even though Spotify don't follow the Spotify model, it's kind of something that we're doing. I don't actually have any testers or QAs. So I have about 6 squads. It's about 50-ish people. And so there aren't any testers for me to have visibility of. So I'm working directly with the developers, the POs, BAs, and so on, and helping them get their head around exploratory testing, helping improve the automation. As for visibility, that's not something I've tackled yet. It is on my list. But as I said, I've only been there 6 weeks, so give me a chance.
Good stuff.
I hope that helps, Emma. If not, message me later.
And next question for each of you, Abby's asked, looking at job descriptions, a lot of roles seem to require a hands-on approach. How do you manage both the people side, the strategy, but also still being hands-on in testing? So yes, Maryam, would be interested to hear your thoughts.
So just trying to understand, Abby, do you mean it's a role as a tester, or is it a role as a QA lead? It'll be good if you can just ping us in what you mean by your question. But I think...
Sorry, just to jump in, she's just added there, as a test manager.
As a test manager. So yes, okay. I've been victim to this. I actually did write code, but I stopped writing code because I feel I was much better at creating strategies. But I was always quite challenged that people said to me, you need to be hands-on, you need to do a coding exercise, which I'm not shy of doing. But I think the reason why we're all asked to be hands-on is also because, like, the goal I have for my team is that even if you're not writing the test automation, I want you to be able to look at code reviews and actually determine that the right tests are written at the right level to avoid duplication, because otherwise we get so segregated from the engineers, and really we should be looking at all-round engineers, some with testing expertise and some with development expertise. The people side is definitely the people side is definitely very, it's trickier, and it's not for everyone. You need to just embrace that fact. Not everyone is a great people leader. Don't aim to be a people leader if you're being forced to be one, or if it's the natural progression. People leadership comes naturally to people, and if it's not something you see, then I wouldn't recommend you jump into it. It's good to be in a place where you can actually balance the hands-on testing techniques as well as the exploratory side of things, because really you should understand the domain you're testing in and then go from there and recommend what type of tests should be written at which level, and then contribute to it via test automation. I think that's the correct journey from my experience so far.
I have a colleague of mine. It depends, I think, sometimes also on the size of team. But my colleague Louise is embedded as a test person in at least one agile team, and sometimes she does most of the time she does sort of the hands-on testing that still needs to be done. But she also does some sort of test management activities. Sometimes we would like a test plan document, or go and sort out all the test cases and make sure there's test coverage and things that you would see. Is so for her, it's both sort of a test and management of the testing activity and doing the testing, and she can do that because she's part of the delivery team. They need to go through the motion of the team. I found out some time ago that I know how to write code, I can understand code, but it doesn't tickle my interest. I don't know, being too old for that or whatever. Done that. So that's why I also more, as I talked about, go sort of on top on the more strategic level, saying, okay, we need some people to help out doing the testing on this, so we need some skills in automating this area. So that's some of the examples that could help you out.
Yeah, so I think there's a how do I phrase this? We need to spend more time reflecting on ourselves and where our skill set lies and what we actually want to do. Whether if you want to be more technical hands-on or whatever, exploratory testing hands-on, then do it. You can add value. Or if you feel like that you might not want to do that anymore, that's fine as well. You can add value in many different ways. You can add values as a facilitator, or as just the person who knows who to go to for that automation or that exploratory testing or whatever the case may be. So I think it's a question about yourself rather than anything else, and where you want to be and what you want to be and how you want to do that. I'm not trying to sound like a hippie or anything, but I don't think that we think about ourselves enough. And in fact, Miriam had a great talk at Test Bash Home. She touched on a lot of subjects, and Simon Pryor had a talk as well a few weeks ago. He touched on a lot of subjects. We don't spend enough time, or we leave it too late before we start looking in on ourselves. And I think that you need to do that, and then you say, okay, I want to be a hands-on manager, whatever that may mean. Or I don't want to be a hands-on manager, I want to use these other skills. And then it's a matter of you finding the organization that needs that, and getting yourself to a good place.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, everyone, for that. Some really good insights. So the next question is from Oleg, and he's asked, what do you look for in a tester when hiring them, and how do you avoid biases? So Maryam, if we could kick off with you again, that'd be great.
I think I'm the wrong person for this question because I'm very vocal about, I think a good friend of mine who's also a test manager, Nidhi Kashyap, she explained it really well to me when I was trying to form my team. And she said, you need to think about people with different skill sets in your team. So if I'm going to build a team of 10 testers, for example, 10 quality engineers, I would like someone with amazing exploratory testing skills. I would like someone who's got great influencing skills, someone who can actually do a lot of measuring and understanding what quality means and how do we differentiate between the qualitative and the quantitative side of things with testing. Someone who's really good with test automation, someone who's probably depends on your code base and the language you're using. People skills, I think, is something which is very important for testers, for sure. I do look at when I'm interviewing on top of how they've written their code. One, you shouldn't really be in the world of quality if your code is not of good quality yourself, and you are the best judge of that before anybody else. So we do look for that. And then the second thing is how they interact during interviews. It really depends on how they can deal with conflict. I know a lot of us do competency-based questions and so on. And I don't think you can really surface that situation in those types of questions. It will be good to try and maybe come up with quite a conflicting idea that we can walk through in the interview and so on, because testers are often faced with a lot of conflicting and pushback related issues that you're trying to push for. No, I think this should be an end-to-end test and it's not going to be signed off without it. And you keep getting pushback that, no, I've written enough unit tests, so on and so forth. Just a small example, just to go back and forth on that. So people who really have good influencing skills and can actually back up their statements with good data or research is something I actually look for as well.
I forgot the order. Is it me or Jesper?
Either or, you can go, Sam. All good.
All right.
So I think bias is hard, but it's much easier if you're aware that you have them. And then you can keep an eye out for them. If you're oblivious, I can't get the word out. If you're not aware of the fact that you have them, it does make it a lot harder, obviously, to see. But you had to sit back. And again, like I just said before, it's about reflecting on yourself and then realizing that you have these bias, and then you can deal with them. As for hiring, it really depends on, as Maryam was saying, what you need. If you need someone for whatever reason to come in and just churn out code, then that's what you're going to look for. If you want someone to be in the team who's maybe even just a more social aspect, then you need that role to gel the team together. That might be one you're looking for. Someone who is a newcomer to testing, but has some skill, and you can see that they will be a good factor to the team to help the team gel together and grow as a team. So I think it's about context, what you need, and the potential that person has, and also I forgot to mention adaptability is very important as well. So yeah, it's really depends on the context.
Yeah. You also wouldn't want a full team of detail-oriented people. No offense. I'm more result-oriented, and a team full of result-oriented people would miss all the details. So you need to mix, obviously. First of all, could also be up and mix on any levels. You need not only senior people. You also need to bring in some juniors every now and then. I mean, I started when I started testing. I had no training. I just started because we needed to have some software tested, and I caught along on the training afterwards. So sometimes on entry-level positions, training comes afterwards. So the more formal training, you just need some people to come from the outside and give you great ideas and new insights, and that can come from business side, from your customers or your support team or whatever. Bring those insights in.
Sorry, go ahead, Jesper.
What I started before I was a tester, I was in IT support for an internet provider, so that could work.
There's something I just want to call out here, just because this is a big room of testers. I think all of us have been asked at some point in our careers, have you done the ISTQB or ISAB certification? And that's only how you're going to be interviewed for this job. I personally pushed back on this a lot, and I would recommend everybody to push back on it. Not because I don't agree with the certification, but because I had actually done a thesis on software testing, and I had that understanding of what it means. Use your experience and don't, I think, take no for an answer when you are pushed back by companies that you're interviewing for, because yes, it's really good to standardize what the understanding of various technology terms and whatnot through that course. But if you don't have it, but you have the experience of doing good testing, then you should use that to your aid.
I was just recently being asked by a colleague of mine that his wife wanted to venture into software testing. So where should she start? Oh, that's a great, thank you for reminding me. Should she take the training for the ISTQB? I was pondering that a bit. How about if you, participated in some online stuff like webinars and what we have now? Do all the free stuff and put that in your CV. It will tell the employer that you show initiative and you're eager to learn. That's really two key things.
But the flip side of that is, well, I'll agree with all that, but the flip side is that there are some organizations that will only look for the ISTQB, and then you need to decide whether what is more important, your soul or paying the rent.
Some very good points there. Thanks very much, guys. So it's your next question here from Jamie. He's asked, in your experience, how have you generated a keenness or willingness to want to learn within your teams and push themselves outside of the "I'll just do my job" mindset? So Tony, it would be great to get some insights into that.
Yeah, so I don't actually think that I just want to do my job attitude is necessarily that bad if that person is doing that job. While I do want people that are obviously interested, like us nutters at 6:30 on a Friday night, and we're on a webinar about testing. Like, I do want that in my team, but I also just want people to do the work. So if someone just wants to do their 9 to 5, 9 to 6, but they're very competent in what they're doing, that's fine. As for driving their interest, though, it's a matter of finding out what they're actually interested in and making that resonate with testing, or making that resonate with what you're doing, which is a bit tricky, but it just involves a couple of discussions with that person, and then working out how to relate that or compare that to testing. So, I mean, I know it could be just the fact that someone is competitive. You could use that to your advantage, or not advantage, but you could use that to help get their interest in testing. So really, it's annoying, but it really depends on the individual person.
Brilliant. Jesper, do you have any thoughts on this? Oh, sorry, Jesper, you're on.
There we go. I'm having a bit of network problem here, sorry.
Oh, no worries. For now, I'll jump over to Marian then, please.
So keenness and eagerness, I think, is one of the key traits for good testers, because curiosity is quite important in our profession. It's difficult to find that out in a person, especially when you're interviewing them. You just have an hour or so. Some people, as Tony was just saying, and I probably want to bring this problem to the table. I actually once had a team where there were some people who were happy just doing their job, which was fine because that's what they were hired to do and they were doing it well. And there were some people who were just pushing their boundaries, that, oh, I've read about this so-and-so technique. Can you guide me? What else can I read? Or is there a way to implement it in our frameworks, and so on and so forth? The problem that I saw as a manager with people who were just comfortable doing what they were doing is that, unfortunately, when we do performance evaluations, people who are more keen and looking to adopt new ideas and improve processes start pushing forward. And the people who are just doing their job, they may be in the middle tier, but then they start falling behind. So for us as managers, it was really hard to justify. I actually still had that challenge, and I don't know how I'm going to try and overcome that, but that's what I've seen. And keenness is something, I think there's a lot of coaching involved. You will find that people who are newer in the industry are a lot more keen, maybe too keen sometimes, to improve things and not thinking about, okay, quality is something you cannot rush, and you need to just be stabilizing a process first in a smaller setting and try to iron out all the different rough edges for the automation framework, so the process you're putting in place, and then expanding it across the rest of the engineering teams. Whereas people who are more senior in the roles, they actually know what to do, how to do it, and they even know where to look for this information. I think, as Jesper was saying early, there is so much information. Even I keep finding now. There are so many books as well. So many people write blogs. I still have to read a few more books, which I've ordered. But it's just keenness is just something you either have or don't have.
Brilliant. Jesper, are you back? Is the network all okay?
Yep, I'm back.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's a challenge. I myself, I want to do all the new stuff, so it's probably not only about seniority. I don't know. But I also have to have my my colleague and my team in sync with me, and I'm the only one, spending Friday nights doing webinars with you folks. So other people are just with their family, and we need to make room for all of them. Some would like to, but due to their obligations, family obligations or whatever, or they simply cannot. Some societies, you need really to work 2 jobs, day and night, to make ends meet. So just also to be aware that yeah, not all people are like, and some have some challenges that you might even not know of. So give them the space they would probably like to, but they cannot for some reason.
Brilliant, thanks very much. So we've had a few people comment that they like this question in the chat. Oleg once more has asked, what does a successful QA team look like to you? So Marian, would be keen to hear your thoughts.
Successful QA team for me is when I can start doing a 4-day work week. I think one, I don't try and align testers to each individual engineering team. A successful QA team, I actually ran this exercise in my team, and I think I would recommend if there's any test managers or even testers in your team to try and do this in your organizations. Some of my coaches recommended running Emily Weber's psychological safety exercise, and that really helps you understand how different people in your team operate. So questions in there are like, how would you like feedback? What time of day do you like to work? How do you like to learn? How do you like to be challenged? And so on and so forth. It really helps you understand the people side of things. And it's really important to do that because you need to understand how to communicate within your team. I think a good test team is one which can really communicate well. I have my team who tells me off if I try and interrupt their meetings with some ideas, and they're like, excuse me, Maryam, this is my meeting, you better shut up. And then the next thing we did was we actually ran like a team huddle session where we had a go at what does success look like for us as a team. I think it's the team which should decide what will make them successful. I think if this question is asking specifically about skill sets, again, as I said earlier, you want a variation of skill sets, and it really depends from product to product and environment to environment. I definitely personally don't want people in my team who are not loyal to their team first. I think that's very important, and also honest, because sometimes, yes, we do miss defects. There are production incidents, and it's very easy to feel or be pointed at that, oh, you guys signed this off, how was this situation missed, and so on and so forth. We do go through this, and as long as you are honest with your team and you tell them, look, I did this and I actually completely forgot to run this manual testing pack on this new feature, and that's how this issue went into production. Can you please help me out here? I'm telling you, that will go much further than actually trying to hide any issues that you may find, because I think as testers, we go through a lot of context switching, because you're trying to think about overall architecture and how the product interacts that we're testing on with it. So I think for me, loyalty and honesty is something which I value more than hard skills, as I would say, ability to learn, how quickly they will learn. If you have those under your belt, then I don't think there's a problem in creating a world-class engineering team.
Brilliant. And Tony, what do you think makes a successful QA team?
I guess to me, well, what do you mean by successful team? Are you talking about in supporting the company or the organization with their skills or their work, or do you mean that just the team is happy and feels effective and good? Because I think that company-wise, a successful team to me would be a team of people that get asked into the earlier meetings, where their opinion is valued and needed. So it might be, it's before anyone's thought of writing any code. We're just discussing the ideas and the requirements, and people say, hey, we need Tony in there, he has a good perspective or asked the good questions or whatever the case may be. So it's people realize your value and you're brought in earlier. On the team side, I think it's just, as Maryam was saying, it's people who feel comfortable speaking up. and there's transparency in the team, and you support your team, and you can tell, you know, when someone comes in feeling down and they're not at 100%, you're there to support them so they can kind of chill out, get over whatever's going on, or deal with whatever's happening, and you're there to support them. Your team helps each other out, and people feel comfortable to speak up.
That's some great insights, you both. I can only add something about proactivity, so that the team, there's no bottlenecks within the team, that people act on their own to get things going. Also, on that note, perhaps something about self-reliance. Someone was talking about being the leader. Actually, your job is to get rid of yourself. You need the team to operate on their own. So if you can build that, that's a sign of a great team, where the team takes initiative and you can slowly sort of back out of being always there to support the team. A great exercise could be, what if the testers were not there? What would happen? Or at least just as a thought experiment. But if you don't dare to, that also tells you something, right?
Brilliant.
So yeah, so something along those lines. But obviously, it's based foremost that there's trust and an openness in the team. So.
Great. Thanks everyone for answering that. Maryam, you've got a question here from Zurab. So Zurab has asked, how did you go about convincing the non-test experienced managers to allow you the opportunity to take the reins for recruiting your own staff?
So how did you go about, sorry, I'm just reading the question about convincing the non-test experienced managers to allow the opportunity to take the reins for recruiting your own crew. I was hired by non-test people. And I think what they were looking for is, someone who can do strategic stuff and so on. And I didn't really have to convince anyone, really, because I think for testers, we go through such a load of CVs and nobody else wants that job. And you're like, please take this job away from me. So I don't think, unless Saurabh has some specific more detail on this question, because I haven't had this problem of where I had to convince someone to take over the reins of hiring for testers.
Okay, interesting. In terms of the next question, this one's from Abby. She said, is it fair to say that Agile has changed the test manager role? What would you think is the next stage for those in the test manager position right now? So I guess on that, it would be, how could you stay current within an ever-changing market? So Jesper, would you be able to give some insights into that, please?
Yeah, definitely. That's something I've been pondering for the last, 5 years. There was a bloke at a conference, Stephen Janaway, who did a talk at a test bash in some years ago, is how he lost his job as a test manager and continued going on. Should really look that one up, because that rang very true to me, what was happening to him, which is I see consistently happening again and again these days, is that the team turn to agile, or there's a transition in the ways of working, and the test management role gets sort of squeezed. And actually, just today, I was doing some consultancy for a project where where even the test management part was done by non-test managers. The testing was done by some business people, and the test management, the facilitating of the test activity was supposed to be done by some in the PMO office, some project managers. Imagine that. I was going, oh my God, that's my job. But then actually my job ended up being sort of the test coach or mentor. So I see a lot of roles moving towards that way. And then again, as we talked about, actually making sure that the team is self-sufficient.
And Tony?
I guess it really depends on how or what you think has changed, because there's still test management. And I work as a consultant for a number of years. I've been through a lot of different companies, and as I was alluding to before as well, agile means completely different things to different organizations. So there is definitely a need for test management. There may not be the job title itself, but there will be and are people that are doing these roles, whether it's on the ground in a team or across the board. I don't necessarily think there's a big rush to get rid of these. There might be some of maybe the job title, but the work still needs to be done, and you might just find you're called something else. Like, for example, I'm a QA chapter lead. I'm still doing test management to a certain degree. I still line manage people. And you can utilize those skills in different roles if you so wish, or you can take the new job title and continue doing what you're doing and improving on that. It really depends on, again, your inner self-reflection, but also the organization and the context of whatever they're going through is.
So just to add to that, so I actually suffered from this quite a lot about 3 years ago, because I was trying to move into another organization and I kept seeing no test manager roles were available in the market, and I was suggesting maybe you should go away and do your own thing or join a consultancy, which are both not my thing. So I started looking into engineering manager roles because I was managing teams and I did know how to work with them. But then again, what I started feeling was, okay, I probably cannot provide them the technical architecture guidance which is needed for engineering teams. So I've just kind of, I would say, stumbled into this quality head of quality or quality coach role, as you would say it, because even though I think the industry is slowly realizing that as we are trying to get rid of testers, we're actually having more quality issues. So we do need people to help guide us about how to bake quality in from the beginning and to do this strategically. And that's kind of the role, you would say. I think there's some conversation in the chat as well about going into Scrum Master roles. Yes, you could do that as well. Again, it's about self-reflection, as Tony's been talking about, and understanding what you are good at first, and then thinking about how you can help an organization with that.
Brilliant. So next question, this one's from Mitz. He said that he always seems to get varied answers on this question, so keen to hear your thoughts. What would you say is the difference between a test strategy and test plan? And over to you, Tony.
So I've not written either for a very long time. But to me, the test strategy is kind of how you're going to test. And the test plan will contain the things like resources and the amount of people you might want, is a short version. So it's kind of the how and what for test strategy, and then the costs and things like that in the test plan. That's my version. But yeah, I think that they've become more lightweight these days, and they're always changing because obviously software changes. So these days, I've not written anything for a while that's longer than a paragraph, really, because it changes and you adapt to it, and it's a thing that you create and use on the go, essentially, as you test.
Interesting. And Jesper, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, when I work in really large programs where we are transitioning servers as well as changing from Office on-prem to Office in the cloud, and there's a lot of moving parts. So the strategy really comes into place, and that can sort of highlight, okay, in this program, we use this testing tool, we use these techniques, we organized this way. And that could also go for a company. It's okay, we as a company have this test strategy, but then when you're sort of working on a more operational activity, so for the next month or so we're doing this, then that's where the test plan comes in. And I've seen and been using there's some one-page test plans. Go out and look those up, because sort of, well, if you can fit it to one sheet, it's probably sufficient. And then keep all the things that doesn't change in the test strategy if you want to write it down somewhere, or your test strategy might even be your wiki pages, or wherever you keep how do we do the things we do. So yeah, there's a difference. I would wish more would just use a mind map for the test plan, really. But I also know that in some contexts that's close to heresy. So there you go.
Well, what about you, Marian?
So I think Abby's just mentioned it depends on who you're creating this for. I've worked in e-commerce environments, and then I worked in, like right now I'm working in a place where our customers are banks which are quite old school in some way. And we are contractually expected to produce test strategy documents because they want to know how we are signing off our features. But really, test strategy to me, for what I understand, is how you define your quality gates. So at what level do you want your unit tests to be executed? Are you doing feature branches? How do you test hot fixes? You know, things which are test strategies are probably consistent across multiple teams and products. It could be an overarching test strategy and maybe specific if there are variations of the product for multiple clients. And test plans to me are really where you define your test scenarios or test cases. And then that's where you can also identify at what level would you expect which scenario to be executed, whether it's unit integration or end-to-end or exploratory and so on. So that's my interpretation of it.
Good stuff. So I'm going to have to make this the last question and leave our panelists to grab some dinner and enjoy their weekends. So this last one from Seema. She's asked, how do you manage team members who are more technical than you? Jesper, if you could kick us off, please.
So team members in the sort of in that do the testing, or I don't think, or in the team, sort of in the delivery team. Can you elaborate on that?
I don't know.
Doesn't test. Okay, test team. Okay, yeah. I have the so the bias of actually have a computer science degree, and not many testers I've met here have sort of a more formal computer science degree, not even a bachelor's or similar. They are lab assistants or project managers. It's actually what I think is really great about the testing is that it's all kinds of people coming together for this. So yeah, so I've never had the challenge of them being more technical, but I also know that my technical expertise either fades away or is simply not sufficient. So we're trying to have others do the more fancy advanced test automation and just rely on them doing their job. And yeah, and trust them, really.
Great insights. What about you, Tony?
So I'm just reading the question. How do you manage team members who are more technical than you? And how do you mentor them? If I need that skill, then I'll look for that. I expect them to be more technical than me, especially because I'm basically an idiot. I just have good communication skills. So I want everyone around me to be better than I am. And I actively look for that. And I think that how to mentor them is kind of, depends what you're mentoring them on. If you're teaching them new skills, then if they're more technical than you, then they probably don't need that, but they may need direction on how to use them effectively in whatever context you're in. So it kind of, again, depends on what you're mentoring them on, or if you're coaching them on something. But it's technical wise, I probably wouldn't try and mentor them on that, because as you've already said, they're more technical than you, but how to apply that is a different thing. You can teach someone, I don't know, you can teach them how to code, but how to use the code well, or how to effectively apply it, their skills they've learned there, is a different matter. And that's where I would focus.
Good stuff. What about you, Maryam?
So when I've had to manage people who are more technical than me, I try and do the more of the soft skills side of development, and then I do lean on tech leads or chapter leads or engineering directors and so on to help guide me a little bit more. And of course, I think when you are in a position of management, you should try and keep yourself up to date as well as to what is happening in the industry, because yes, you may not write code day to day, but at least you should be able to talk the talk, if not walk the walk.
Brilliant. Well, look, just want to say a huge thank you to our panelists, Tony, Jesper, and Maryam. And thank you, Maryam, for the idea. We had some really good questions there, really good comments as well. And apologies, we couldn't get through each of them, but I've got to let the panelists enjoy their weekend. So thanks very much, everyone, for coming along. We've got a number of different events happening next week as well. So yeah, thanks for being part of Quality Advocates.
Cool. Thank you so much, Billy. I've actually shared my Twitter handle and LinkedIn. If anybody has more questions, we can help there. And I think you've also posted this.
Yeah, reach out. I'm also in the Slack, so, and on Twitter as well. I'll just put in my handle. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for your intriguing questions.
Yeah, reach out if we need to. And yeah, thanks, Billy. Thanks, Marian, for the idea, and thanks, everyone.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Stay safe. Have fun.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.